Hello and welcome to episode number 18 of Chel Squared. I'm your host, Andrew Chelney, and oh man, do we have a special show for you today. Before we get started, please make sure to follow the podcast on Twitter at Chel Squared and on Facebook at Chel Squared for more hot takes, news by featured guests, poll questions, and a whole lot more. Please rate the show on iTunes if you enjoy listening. It means a lot to me. And every time you like the show on SoundCloud or give it a rating on iTunes, a puppy gets a hug from its owner. I don't make the rules, just spreading knowledge here. This week's show is all about what went down in the NHL this past week. We're going to talk about the Columbus Blue Jackets. Lots of great stuff to get into with them. They're currently 3-2. Game tonight against the Flyers at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, after getting absolutely spanked by the Lightning 8-2 on Tuesday. And PanarIN, Artemi PanarIN leading the way with 7 points, but how long is he going to remain a Blue Jacket? That is a question that remains to be seen the answer to. The Penguins and the Leafs tonight. Are we going to see 15 goals scored in this game? 17, 18, 30 goals here? What's the over-under? I mean, there's going to be a lot of goals here. Also, if you look at the standings, the Anaheim Ducks, the Canadiens, and the Senators are all currently in playoff spots. Now, before we start putting money on the Ducks or the Senators making the playoffs here, remember that the Canadiens were 10-0-0 to start a season a couple years ago, and then they didn't make the playoffs. So before we go to Vegas here and start putting down bets, just keep that in mind. The Flyers have a lot of injury problems. JVR, Morin, Neuwirth on the IR, Nolan Patrick not playing against Columbus tonight. How will they fare while waiting for these players to return? JVR, big part of their offense. So Patrick, of course, on the big part of their team. Neuwirth not playing either. These guys are big to the team, and they mean a lot to the squad. And right now they're not playing. So we'll see how Philadelphia will play without them tonight versus Columbus. Also, Chicago needs a goaltender. Not named Cam Ward. Maybe bring Scott Foster back? I mean, I don't know. At this point, Chicago needs somebody that's not named Cam Ward, because Cam Ward is really bad. Real bad. He cost the Hawks a couple of games already, both of which in overtime. I mean, the Hawks would have been 5-0 if they didn't blow both those games in overtime. I mean, I don't know about the Hawks, long-term success this season, but they would have started the season 5-0 if Cam Ward was not Cam Ward. I mean, Scott Foster is a free agent, right? So you might as well sign him. He can't be worse than how Cam Ward is playing, honestly, right now. We'll of course talk the poll question and a whole lot more. And here to talk with me about everything I just listed off and a whole lot more is Jordan Mills from the CBJArtillery, #, We Are the Fifth Line. Jordan, what's up?
What's going on, man? How we doing?
We're doing pretty well, man. How about you?
We're doing good. Obviously coming off an 8-2 loss, kind of. And then we go into a 4-day break, so that kind of lingers with you. But other than that, us Jacket fans, we're doing well.
So, by the way, before we do a deep dive into the hockey talk here, before the show, we were texting, and I would love to know your opinion on the record on the show on Artemi PanarIN in a Rangers jersey. The way he's talked about the team and the way he's talked about not being committed to signing in Columbus. It's not a question of if, it's when he will be in a Rangers jersey. Jordan, what do you think about that?
I don't know. Obviously, there's a lot up in the air with Artemi PanarIN. As far as we know, what we've heard here in Columbus, he wants to possibly leave Columbus for, the bright lights, the big city, either a body of water as well. So he could go East Coast, West Coast. We really don't know. As far as we know in Columbus, he doesn't want to sign long term. So we're kind of hoping there's still a chance he could maybe, lock in a couple-year contract to see maybe if he wanted to sign long-term. He seems happy. Every time he talks very highly of Columbus. So it's just kind of an interesting situation. We're not quite sure. Columbus, surprisingly, a lot of people don't know. Very big city. We're like the 13th largest in the nation, which, that kind of comes to a surprise for a lot of people. A lot to do here. We're a big city mixed in with kind of a small-town feel. So, a lot of players that play for the Blue Jackets, players that are traded in here, end up retiring here, living here, because it's a great city. Very, very underrated. So, PanarIN leaving to New York, I think New York fans want that to happen. But as of right now, I don't know. There's not really a lot of talk around Columbus of him going to New York, if at all.
I mean, Panarin would be a great Ranger. I say that with a smile on my face, of course. Panarin would look really good in red, white, and blue.
He would, but he's going to look better in our red, white, and Union blue for the Blue Jackets. So I think, I don't know. The verdict's still out on him. If it's not a long-term deal, maybe like a 2-year contract. But at the same time, if teams are going to be shelling out, $10 million for 8 years for you, then you're probably going to want to get that contract right away. So I don't know. It's he's kind of leaving us hanging. I mean, unfortunately, we might have like a Tavares situation here in Columbus with Panarin, but we're still holding out hope here in Columbus for sure, because he's easily, I think, one of the top 5 best forwards in the National Hockey League.
That's that's totally I can see where you're coming from that, because after his first season in Chicago, where he scored 77 points in 80 games, a lot of people thought, okay, well, this is just because of Patrick Kane or Jonathan Taves, or he's a product of the team and not the player himself. And then he pretty much repeated the same numbers in 16-17, 74 points in 82 games, and then that's when people really started to realize, oh wait, Panarin is actually for real. And then he came to Columbus and broke his career high, 82 points in 81 games, which is, I mean, that's over a point a game. That's incredible. And now he's leading the way with 7 points in 5 games. But now his contract situation, he's on his last year, as the hockey world very well knows, and it's been well documented. Panarin, $6 million for this season, and then he's a UFA. He's 26 right now. What kind of contract will it take for Panarin to sign on the dotted line, do you think?
I mean, we're going to see numbers, I think, of a little south of what Tavares got with the Leafs. I think easily, I think Panarin can pull $9 to $10 million. I think that's without a doubt. And I know the Jackets, our GM, General Manager Jarmo Kekalainen, that contract's already been on the table for Panarin. I don't really know specifically the numbers, but it's been suggested that it's been north of $9 million. So, I mean, Jarmo Kekalainen, our GM, he's making his mission to, keep Panarin and also sign Bobrovsky, because this is a contract year for him too. So, yeah, I have no doubts that it's going to be, a little south of what Tavares got, but still up there, but potentially, to the 10 million range.
Well, here's the thing, right? Columbus is now, their cap space is around $5.6 million, according to Cap Friendly, of course. And you take, Panarin and his $6 million salary right now. Let's say you raise it to 9.5 or whatever it's going to take for Panarin to sign, hypothetically, right? And that will crunch the cap space even more. And Bobrovsky's a free agent. Korpisalo's an RFA. There's a ton of RFAs after this season. Sonny Milano, Ryan Murray, Zach Werenski needs a new contract as well. I mean, even if Panarin wanted to re-sign, is it smart for Columbus to give him that big contract? I mean, obviously, as you said, he is one of the best forwards in the game, and I agree with you on that. However, because a lot of the players need new contracts, I mean, is there even space to do that? Can they afford to do that and not and not tie themselves up with the cap space?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely not a lot of wiggle room with our cap space. That's luckily I don't get paid to make those decisions, because in my opinion, though, if Artemi Panarin, absolutely, the Blue Jackets need to go all in on this guy, because he is a guy that you build a team around. He is a superstar in this league. He is a dynamic playmaker. He is a guy that can make anything happen at any moment. And these guys are few and far between. So you have to do everything you can to try to lock this guy down in Columbus. Granted, cap space might be an issue. Somebody that I could potentially see the Jackets maybe moving on from is Brandon Dubinsky. That would free up nearly $6 million. Whether that comes in a trade, because he still has some time left on his contract with us. I mean, some other guys that could possibly clear up some room. There really aren't that many. We've kind of signed a lot of these guys up, and a lot of these dudes within our franchise are part of the youth movement here to stay with us for a while. So he has his work cut out for him, no questions asked. I mean, to re-sign Bob and Panarin in 1 year, you're looking at shelling out maybe $20 million a year. So I don't know if he can pull some magic, kind of like the Leafs GM over there, but something's definitely got to happen.
Well, Kyle Dubas, he's in a pickle as well because he signed Tavares to this huge contract. The Maple Leafs don't have a blue line. They're currently rolling with 12 forwards.
Yeah, we've seen that with the amount of offensive production, the lack of defense from the Leafs so far.
Basically, yeah. Which is why I'm saying this Pittsburgh-Toronto game tonight, there's going to be like 80 goals. There's no way there's going to be any sort of defense played in that game. But
no, not at all.
But Brendan Dubinsky,
especially with Jack Johnson now being a part of Pittsburgh. Let's be real here. This guy's time is up in the league, in my opinion. And when the Pittsburgh Penguins signed him to the contract he got, Blue Jackets fans were floored. They were like, holy crap. There's no way. Columbus would have never paid that. And don't get me wrong, Johnson had some good times here in Columbus. But, yeah, with Johnson being a main staple on your blue line for Pittsburgh, you guys are in a world of hurt, if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, Jack Johnson is 1, not a top 2 defenseman. 2, not a top 4 defenseman.
No.
Number 3, not even a top 6 defenseman either right now. So to sign him to that kind of money is not
ridiculous.
Good to say the least. Well,
no.
To circle back to what you were saying about Brendan Dubinsky, he's 32 right now. $5.85 million until the 2020-21 season. That's the last year of his contract, and he has a no-move clause. And he's on the IR right now with Seth Jones as well. So, what's the outlook here? If Jarmo was going to look at trading Dubinsky, or maybe I don't know how attached you are to, let's say, Nick Foligno, who's making $5.5 million. He's 30 years old, also no move clause. He's been very up and down in Columbus. He's 1 year he's scoring, 30 some odd goals, and then the next year he doesn't score that much, and he's kind of in the background for a lot of games. What is the approach to, let's say you're Jarmo here. What would be the first thing that you do to ease the cap space here? Because the Jackets are in a bind. They need space. You're the GM. What would be the very first thing that you do?
I mean, the very first thing is you got to look at, I think you got to start with Brandon Dubinsky. Bottom line, the numbers aren't there anymore with him. He's not putting up the numbers he was years ago, and we're paying him a lot of money. He came in to the Blue Jackets during the whole Rick Nash saga of Nash wanting to leave. And, he did a great job for us, but I think his time is slowly coming to an end here in Columbus. Like I said, that $6 million comes off the books. That's got to be something you look at if you are Jarmo Kekalainen. In terms of getting rid of Nick Foligno, I really don't see that happening. Although his offensive production's not there every season, his leadership skills are. I mean, he is a fan favorite. Even though he doesn't put up the numbers, I mean, the fans just absolutely love him here in Columbus. He does so much good. He donated $1 million to our children's hospital here. He is a phenomenal person on and off the ice. Granted, at some point though, the offensive production needs to be there, and he's got off to a great start this season, and he had a 2-goal game during the Panthers game there last week. So we're hoping, he can have a good offensive season. But, you think you got to start with the guy like Brandon Dubinsky. I mean, beyond that, I don't know, because all these guys are people that you would assume are going to be a part of the Blue Jackets' future, especially, our defensemen, potentially maybe moving Ryan Murray. We got some young guys on our defensive side that are chomping at the bit to be here. Ryan Murray just seems to be made of glass. He's hurt all the time. But when he's not hurt, he plays great. So that's one thing another franchise could potentially look at. That's $3 million that could potentially come off our cap space, where we could bring up a young guy that's, still making the league minimum that can put up the same production as a Ryan Murray. But there's definitely a lot of things Jarmo's got to take into consideration, but I think you got to first start with maybe Brandon Dubinsky and kind of work your way from there.
Well, here's the thing, right? When we say, trade Foligno or trade Dubinsky or whatever, we're not saying, that these guys are bad people in any sense.
No, for sure. Absolutely.
Foligno, I'm sure Jack Johnson's a great guy. I'm sure, because as much as I hated Dan Girardi when he was on the Rangers, from what I've heard about Dan Girardi, he's a great person. Yeah. But in terms of just like
all these guys are great.
In terms of pure hockey, pure business here, Nick Foligno's contract seems to be the most bloated on the offense anyway, because
it's fairly bloated, yeah.
Because he's 30, because it's $5.5 million, because his offense isn't quite as potent as a could be, or two, just isn't fit that contract. So in terms of just business, his contract is probably the second most movable contract in terms of one, Dubinsky need to get rid of for that contract, and two, if you would have to make a list of contracts that you want to move, if you're Columbus, one has to be Dubinsky, and in my head, Foligno has to be number 2 on that list.
I mean, you can bring up Foligno. I just don't see him going anywhere. I think he's going to be a staple here for a couple more years at least. Somebody that might be a shock to people that are not familiar with the Blue Jackets, and he was one of our draft picks a couple years ago. He's currently making $5 million each year until 2023. Still a super young guy. You got Alexander Wennberg. There's just no offensive production from him right now. He can dish it out. He can put up some assists, but for whatever reason, he just doesn't shoot the puck at the net. And you can look at his stats. Not good he's a top, sometimes on that first line. Majority of the time, they put him on that second line center. If you're a second line center, your job is to make plays happen. He's okay at making plays happen, but on top of that, he doesn't shoot a lot. His goal production's not there. He's still young, still 24. Maybe he's just kind of in his own head, but that's $5 million right there. And maybe a team that's looking for a solid center could potentially pick up a Wennberg, but I think the Jackets don't want to give up on him yet. Like I said, he has a lot of time. He was one of our draft picks, I think 3 years ago. And but yeah, that's $5 million. But he has got to pick up his offensive side because, it's been talked about all throughout Columbus, just how this guy is just not doing anything.
I mean, career high of 13 goals.
Exactly.
2016-17, 80 games played. He had 46 assists that year, so 59 total points. And you brought up a great point. Wennberg is still 24. He only scored 8 goals last year. Doesn't have any goals this year in 5 games. Has 3 assists. I mean, that's a name that I didn't even consider. But you are absolutely on the money. That is a name that he has a team. He has a pretty team friendly contract for only being 24 years old. But you're right. I mean, he if he doesn't step it up, then trading him over Foligno could potentially be a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly wouldn't rule it out. Yarmo's made some pretty gutsy trades in his time here in Columbus. I think a big one is Saad going back to Chicago for getting us Panarin. Right. At the time, I mean, Panarin had just come in the league, and at least here in Columbus, a lot of us really didn't know too much about Panarin. So we were all about Brandon Saad. We were like, oh, this guy's great. And so, I mean, like I said, Yarmo's made some bold moves that have panned out pretty well for us. So if trading Wennberg potentially is in his head, I wouldn't be surprised at all because the numbers just aren't there for a second line center for Wennberg.
So the poll question, by the way, for today's show, it was about Panarin. And the question was, how likely is Panarin to remain a Blue Jacket at the trade deadline? So once 3 p.m. or whatever the arbitrary time is this year for the trade deadline to officially be over, how likely is Panarin to remain in Columbus? Now, the 4 options here were he gone. The second one was stays, but he's gone in July. The third one is pretty likely, and the fourth one is 100% guaranteed. Now, before I read you the answers here, which option are you leaning towards the most?
He will be a Blue Jacket after the trade deadline.
So you're saying that he stays for one more push, and then he's gone in free agency?
I'm not saying he's going to be gone. I am saying that I'm still holding out hope, but I might be blinded or just jaded to the fact that I'm a Blue Jackets fan. But I think he will stay past the trade deadline. And I think we're going to have pretty much what the Islanders were going through this year. The only reason I say that he's going to be staying because I truly believe this team is going to make the playoffs again. We have great talent. We have great depth within this organization now. So I think I don't know if Jarmo is going to want to break that up. I think our GM is going to want to keep it consistent, keep Panarin in there, keep Bob in there, and just ride out the season. And if it so happens that they both leave, that clears up maybe 15 mil of cap space for us, and we can go out and sign some free agents. But,
wow, so you are very much on the train here of let Bobrovsky walk if need be.
If need be, I mean, here's the thing. As far as I know, the contract has already been laid on the table for Bobrovsky as well as Panarin. And these guys at this particular moment within this part of the season don't want to worry about the contract talks. The money's there. I know they've been offered. They have to have been offered exactly what they're asking. I don't think our GM would, lowball these guys. So I'm, as an optimistic Jackets fan, I'm kind of hoping that they'll sign. So I'm saying, yeah, ride it out. I don't know. I really don't know. I wish I could tell you. But, yeah, I mean, there's a consensus around at least Columbus that we really don't know if they're going to be traded. I think we are here to ride them out into the playoffs, and we're just going to see what happens after that.
Well, how do you feel about John Tortorella's tenure as head coach at Columbus then? Because you've had some pretty solid teams only to be knocked out of the first round a few times. What do you think about John Tortorella and his approach to coaching the Columbus Blue Jackets? I know he got an extension earlier this year, but let's say you were Jarmo for a second. Would you look towards maybe trying to find a replacement for him, or are you liking him so much so that there's no question John Tortorella is your head coach?
No question. John Tortorella is our head coach. We love him here in Columbus. I think a lot of hockey fans know John Tortorella. If he's not coached for your team, I feel like a lot of hockey fans know Torts by his sound bites off of YouTube. They don't really know the man that he actually is. Tortorella is a fantastic coach. He tells you how it is, and I think that's something that lacks, especially when you're with the media. I would rather have a coach just shoot it straight than beat around the bush. I like his approach. It's a no-nonsense approach. And when he got to Columbus, that's after Todd Richards got fired because the Jackets started off 0-8, and they brought in John Tortorella. And I think it was good for the Blue Jackets. We had a lot of young guys on this team. We were the youngest team in the league when he came in. We're still one of the youngest. And I think his no-nonsense approach, the structure he brings, but also he puts a lot of trust within his players. A lot of times he lets the players control the locker room. He's not going to go in there and during intermissions, a lot of times he wants the captain. He wants Nick Foligno to step up and just, help guide this team the way they should go. And I like that approach too. So John Tortorella, in my opinion, is a fantastic coach. He wouldn't be the winningest U.S.-born coach if he wasn't good. And so I'm a big fan of John Tortorella. The fans in Columbus love him. So no question is he our coach. And I think the 2-year extension was well worth it.
It's a fair point for sure. I mean, I watched Torts coach the Rangers for a little bit. The old dump and chase. Didn't work out so well. Also, his decisions on deployment could have been a lot better. But I'm sure that's fixed at least a little bit in Columbus now because he's been there for so long. He knows the lay of the land. And
I mean, there's really not too much dump and chase happening. There was more dump and chase with Todd Richards as our head coach than there is with John Tortorella.
Which is good, I think. I think the whole dump and chase scheme, this whole schematic of that in the NHL is probably outdated at this point. I mean, you could try to do that maybe if you're the Leafs, because they're such a fast team and they could maybe they can successfully do that more than other teams. But even then, if you're that quick, you can just skate into the zone without the risk of just throwing it to the goal line and trying to skate after it. But I mean,
absolutely.
You play the Flyers tonight, so the Flyers have problems right now, to say the least. JVR is out. Patrick's not playing. Morin's out. Neuwirth is out. Yuri Laterra is right now being investigated for cocaine. I mean, the Flyers have issues. So Yuri Laterra, 8 points in 62 games last year, 0 points in 6 games this year. Yuri Laterra is all over the map right now. You play the Flyers; they have a whole lot of injury issues right now. What do you see from the Flyers in terms of keeping the ship afloat here while they wait for some of their top guys to come back? Yeah,
I mean, so we have our own podcast that we do, and we dropped an episode yesterday.
Yep.
And I came out and I predicted that the Jackets fall to the Flyers 4-3 today. I think for whatever reason, I don't know if a lot of your listeners, I don't know how much they focus on the CBJ at all, but Bobrovsky starts tonight. Bobrovsky's had a terrible preseason. He's had a pretty bad start of the season. Our backup goalie and Jonas Korpisalo has more wins than him right now. Bob is struggling, and when your goaltender's off, when you're without Seth Jones, who is a Norris candidate, right. He's easily our top defenseman. When you take him out of the lineup, that just trickles down the rest of your pairings, and you're trying to match up guys, and sometimes it just doesn't work. So that 8-2 loss against the Lightning was a reflection of everything I just mentioned there. So granted, the Flyers, there are injuries everywhere with them right now. But I think the Flyers have some pretty good depth within the organization. I think some of the better of the depth that I've seen in recent years. But I think it'll be a close game. Don't get me wrong, but I think Bob's struggles may continue into tonight's game. I just don't think he's found his game yet, but I hope I'm wrong. But just between our defense, our special teams is awful. We can't get our power play going. We can't get our PK going. And with Bob just not being himself yet, I wouldn't be surprised, even with all the injuries, the Flyers come away with potentially like a 4-3-1. That's kind of what I called yesterday.
In 3 games this year, Bobrovsky is 1-2. He's given up 13 goals.
Yeah.
Save percentage of .860.
Oh, my God.
Goals against average of 4.39.
And I told you, Bob's not himself.
Looking at Hockey Reference right now, they have a metric called goals saved above average, and I talked about this on the show a few weeks ago. If in case you don't know, it is the goals that this particular goalie prevented given his save percentage and shots faced versus the league average save percentage on the same number of shots, minimum 4 shots per faced to qualify. So in 2016-17, Bobrovsky saved 33 and a half more shots than the average goaltender. That led the league. That was the year he won the Vezina. Last year, he saved about 17 more shots than the average goaltender. This year, negative 4.35.
No, I believe it. Absolutely. It's not been easy to watch, Bob. We're so used to the way he plays, and if anything, he would bail the team out in front of him so many times. He's been a phenomenal goaltender for us, and I have no doubt that he's going to find his game again. But I don't know if he's just in his head because it's a contract year. He can't decide if he wants to stay or wants to go, and I think that might be slightly weighing on him. I'm not saying that's the whole reason for his slow start to the season, but I have no doubt that he will get back into it. I think. Is Sergei Bobrovsky. He's a 2-time Vezina winning trophy winner. But yeah, it's not been easy to watch so far this season, old Bobrovsky.
Well, here's the thing, right? Like me being a Rangers fan, I've watched Henrik Lundqvist sometimes struggle out of the gate to play well and then eventually climb back to the elite goalie that he is. But it did take him, about a month or so, a couple of times, a few times, for Lundqvist to get back to his old self. So could we be seeing that from Bobrovsky right now? Of course, only 3 games in. Still very early on in the season, for Bobrovsky, of course. He only played 3 games so far. Going to be number 4 tonight. Obviously, the sample size is very small, but the thing that I'm seeing from these great goaltenders is it does take them a little bit of time to get back to where they were, and I don't know what the cause of that is. Lundqvist has had that a few times. Bobrovsky's having that right now. I mean, it's not like Bobrovsky forgot how to play hockey, right? Bobrovsky is still a 2-time Vezina winning goaltender. So it's not like he just, woke up one day and forgot how to play how to be a goalie. But for some reason, these great goaltenders, they struggle out of the gate and then eventually pick up the pace and then, be their old great selves later on in the season. I'm not sure what the cause of that is, but that might be what's going on with Bobrovsky right now. Lundqvist is having a start to his career right now. He's out here making these spectacular saves left and right. I mean, the team in front of him isn't that great, so he's got to be, on the helm here, sharp as he can be to stop these 40-plus shot nights, which is, oh my God.
You're if you're a Rangers fan, you're in for it for a couple of years there.
Yeah, to say the least. But
now I know why you're really banking on Panarin getting there.
Yeah, I mean Panarin's gonna be a Ranger, so
all right, we'll see.
So it'll even out a little bit, but the Blue Jackets, if Panarin leaves and if Bobrovsky leaves, that might be
it's
a
rough.
Tough pill to swallow.
Very tough. I mean, it will be for us Jackets fans. The good thing about us is we do have in the 18 years we've been a franchise. Yeah, everybody knows. Yeah, we've never won a playoff series. We had our struggles in the the early 2000s to mid 2000s. We just kind of now found our groove here of late. I would say 2014 to 2018 that we've been consistent. We've been making the playoffs. So organizationally, we have the best depth we've ever had here. And if we did lose Panarin, that would suck, absolutely. But that does open the door for some cap space where we can potentially go out, sign a free agent, hopefully a first-line center guy or a first-line wing. But within our organization, we have some great talent in terms of goaltending. One being our backup, Jonas Korpisalo. He's proven that he can come in, step in, and win games. We also have a guy overseas. His name is Elvis Merlinkins. And he's pretty much said when he comes over, he wants to be the starter. That's his goal. And he's putting up hella great numbers right now overseas. And he's somebody that I think that could step in and start winning right away here in Columbus. So organizationally, in terms of goaltending, we have depth. We have some good guys, the forwards, defense. I think our defense, once Jones comes back, it's probably top 5 in the Metropolitan. It's or top 4, I would say, in the Metropolitan. Yeah, it would suck to lose these guys, but like I say, organizationally, those of you that are not familiar with the Blue Jackets, we have the greatest depth we've ever had within our franchise. It's just a matter of getting over that hump of winning a playoff series with this team.
Well, a team that's definitely not in the top 4 in the Metro Division, a team that's not in top 4 in the Atlantic either in terms of defense, are the Penguins and the Maple Leafs, of course, who square off tonight. And if you were to go to Vegas right now and put in an over-under on the amount of goals scored in this game, how many would you put down? Because I can see 15 goals scored. I can also see, inversely, that Tristan Jarry or Casey DeSmith or whichever goalie is playing in Pittsburgh tonight, against Freddie Anderson, and this game ends in a 1-0 shootout or whatever. Just something super out of what everyone is expecting to happen. This could end in a 1-0 score here, but hockey sense is saying this is going to be a wild, wild west game. So if you were to go to Vegas, how many goals do you predict is going to be scored in this game tonight, Leafs and Penguins? Because honestly, probably an 8-7 score, 7-6 maybe, something in that range. Over 10. If the over-under is 10.5, I'm taking the over.
Yeah, I'm going. I mean, I had it written down, kind of what I was thinking. I'm going 11. I'm going to go 6-5 Leafs overtime.
Okay, who scores the overtime Leafs goal? Now this is what I want to know. Now, if you were to tweet, Bucci right now and say, forget the game.
Overtime challenge.
The overtime winner is blank. Who would it be?
McDavid, easily. McDavid. Oh, Matthews.
McDavid.
I'm sorry, Matthews. Hold on. Sorry.
Unless you know something that I don't hear.
Yeah, they're both getting traded. He's getting traded over there.
Yeah.
No, sorry, Austin Matthews. My apologies. I went straight for the M word. Sorry.
Well, I mean, McDavid is better than Austin Matthews. Whoa, is that a hot take? I don't think it is.
I think it was.
It's not.
It's not at all.
It is not I mean, Austin Matthews, as we've seen, is a phenomenal player. However, McDavid is the best player in the league. Sidney Crosby said McDavid was the best player in the league. I mean, there's no debate here. Whoever wants to debate this is probably a Leafs fan. Let's be real here. Let's be real.
Oh, for sure.
Both of us aren't saying, we're not trying to suggest that Matthews is a bad player. Obviously, he's not. He's one of the best players in the league. But if you were to present to me two options, one of which is take McDavid, the second one which take Austin Matthews, I'm taking Connor McDavid 11 times.
Yeah.
There's no...
I mean, you got to look, though. I mean, Matthews right now, he has put up 16 points in 7 games, 10 goals. This guy is on fire this season. So how can you not go with the OT? He might even get a hat trick in the game. I mean, he's definitely going to get the OT winner. Tonight,
why stop at 3? Honestly, with the way these lines are looking right now, why stop at 3? Honestly,
yeah, seriously, you can rack him in, man. It's crazy the amount of goals he already has on the year.
I mean, here's the thing, right? But Connor McDavid has currently been in the mix of every Oilers goal this season.
Yeah.
That is beyond ridiculous. That's just that you can't even do that in NHL 19 if you tried. That is near impossible.
That kind of goes to show what's that got to say about the rest of their team right now. They're definitely offensively they may be in a world of hurt if you got one guy who's getting the goals and the assist.
It's like, here's the thing. McDavid is, probably never going to leave Edmonton. Pete Chiarelli is the general manager. So honestly, never say never is a big thing in Edmonton. But if McDavid ever leaves, Edmonton, that would be a disaster for Edmonton unless they get like a Gretzky-esque package in return. But even then, it's like you can't trade him. I mean, you shouldn't trade him, and we're not suggesting that there will be a trade. But honestly, with Pete Chiarelli at the helm, controlling these guys' futures, you can't say never just because it's Pete Chiarelli. You never know with him. You just never know. I mean, but I do agree. Austin Matthews is probably going to score at the overtime winner if there is overtime, or a Hattie. Or what? Why not both? He scores his 8th goal of the game in overtime. Yeah. The Leafs win 8-7.
Yeah, 8-7, or like this prediction I gave a second ago, and then he's going to have a hat trick. He will get a goal, and he'll get the game winner.
This game, I can't wait until this game starts. It's around 5:30 Eastern time right now. I can't wait until this game starts. It's gonna be phenomenal.
I'll be inside Nationwide Arena, so I'll be getting the updates on my phone for sure.
I want live tweets of every time Matthews is on the ice. I almost said McDavid. So you're tripping me up now. I got it in your
head. I'm sorry.
You're tripping me up now. No, I mean, I want a live tweet. I wanted to
say originally, but it just came out differently.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, unless you know something that we don't hear, but which could be true. I don't know yet. But
three-way trade. It involves Panarin, also McDavid, something with Columbus.
Until Darren Dreger gives me the old Twitter update, I'll hold my breath a little bit. But I mean, I want a live tweet every time Matthews is on the ice. Whenever he takes a sip out of his water bottle, I need a tweet from that as well. I need the Matthews updates, because you never know when his 8th goal of the game is going to come. You never know. Yeah.
Shoot, all you gotta do is follow NHL on Twitter. They have, I'm sure they'll have a live update of that whole game. I mean, Pittsburgh and Leafs. That's the NHL's dream right now, especially with you got Crosby on one end, Matthews on the other. Are you kidding me?
The game is going to be on NBC Sports, so there could be, NBC loves to do the star cam. So if one is on Matthews, I wouldn't be surprised. But if you look at the standings right now, some of these surprise teams are that they jump out at you. So first of all, the Hurricanes, I got Ford Hatchett on, who's the defenseman for the Syracuse University hockey team. He's a Hurricanes fan. He has a podcast. We talked about the Hurricanes and how they're actually not bad this year.
They're not.
And
Pretty solid.
And we've seen, from the first 7 games or so, 4-2-1. They had a rough go against the Lightning on Tuesday, but they look like a pretty solid team. The Devils, the Devils, who I'm still getting tweets from that after I tweeted out that all these New York sports teams are bad and who are New York sports fans going to cheer for, and the Devils quote tweeted that with a thinking emoji, and then I got half of New Jersey in my mentions saying the Devils are going to be great.
Love it, man.
The Devils are 4-0, scored 17 goals, given up 4. They've given up 4 goals in 4 games. Shutout against the Stars on Tuesday. 3-0 final score. I mean, the Devils are I wouldn't say they're a surprise team, but to go 4-0 and only give up 4 goals, that is crazy. That's crazy.
Good, for sure. In the podcast we do here in Columbus, we did a Metropolitan Division podcast, just kind of highlighting teams, and we picked our top 4 for the Metro. I had the Devils making the playoffs this year, so I'm feeling pretty good about my prediction right now.
I mean, for sure, the Devils, I feel most people had to make the playoffs, but this is probably their best start overall in quite some time. Only because on top of winning 4 games in a row, to give up 4 goals in 4 games, that's unbelievable. That's unbelievable.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the defense, goaltending, everything is clicking for the Devils right now, for sure.
The only other team in the NHL that has given up less than 10 goals a game has been the Lightning, who have given up 9 in 4 games. And they're 3-1, which is kind of crazy. If you give up 9 goals in 4 games and to lose one of them, that's pretty crazy, actually. But you'll take a look at some of these other teams, the Montreal Canadiens. The quote-unquote rebuilding Canadiens are currently 4-1-1. They just beat St. Louis last night with, 9 seconds to go in the game or whatever? Mm-hmm. I think it was Gallagher. I can't remember. But the Canadiens just stole 2 points right out of St. Louis.
I mean, the Canadiens, they're not some team just to kind of, push away. You got to think, you got Price in between the pipes. Thomas Tatar, Max Domi, Shea Weber, Andrew Shaw. I mean, these guys, that's a solid core of guys. It's just a matter if the young guys can, blend in well, which it seems like it might be working so far for them this year.
I mean, sure, Max Domi is not better than Galchenyuk. Pacioretty's missing. Tatar is not as good as Pacioretty, even though he has been struggling in Vegas. But that is, I don't want to say that's to be expected, but when you play your whole career with one team, then you get thrown into a different situation with different players and different coaching styles and all of that. I mean, it's not an excuse because Pacioretty is still Max Pacioretty, but I kind of get why he's been struggling in Vegas, only because this is a whole new environment for him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, good Lord, going to Vegas is a new environment for anybody.
Yeah. And a team that is currently in a wild card spot in the East, which baffles me, is the Ottawa Senators. They are 3-2-1 right now with 7 points. Lightning are behind them with 6, but of course Lightning have only played 4 games. The Senators, there's no way they will continue this. There's no way. Because
it is not sustainable whatsoever with those guys right now.
No, you're absolutely right. They beat the Stars 4-1, and seemingly the Dallas Stars have been the Eastern Conference's punching bag last couple of days here. Shut out by New Jersey. They only scored 1 against the Senators. I mean, I don't know what's going on in Dallas. But Dallas
I would if Panarin's looking to go to a big city, I would take Tyler Seguin over here in a heartbeat. He wants to go to Dallas. All right, bud.
I mean, that's fair. What if just a 1-for-1 trade, Seguin for Panarin? That'd be similar to a Shea Weber for PK Subban deal. Just a 1-for-1 clean, straight up blockbuster deal. I mean, that would send many an article onto the internet. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if the Dallas Stars are looking to shake things up, because I mean, obviously it's no secret they've been struggling in the past couple of years. So hey, if they want to shake it up, we'll take Tyler Seguin.
I mean, who wouldn't, right? Besides Boston, maybe.
Maybe Boston. They probably don't want him back.
Boston would love Tyler Seguin. First of all, they would want that trade back because that trade looks horrible. Yeah. I mean, it looked horrible when the trade happened, and it looks even worse now. But you take a look at some of these teams. Buffalo is 3-3. They lost to Vegas, of course, on Tuesday. Buffalo is 3-3. Pittsburgh is 2-1-2. They have given up more goals right now. They've given up 20 goals, which is about 4 a game, and they've only scored about 17. So for the first time in what seems like forever, the Pittsburgh Penguins are kind of in a rut here.
Yeah, so call me crazy, but when we did our podcast about the Metropolitan Division, I actually had Pittsburgh on the outside looking in for the first time in a long time. It was a very hot take, and it's still pretty hot, so we'll see what happens, but I just think kind of what we were talking about earlier, defensively, I don't think they have it right now. I mean, Crosby and Malkin, they still pack a punch, but I don't think they are what they used to be. So, and I think the Pittsburgh Penguins rely too much on them, which, I mean, granted, they've earned that right because, I mean, God, they're Crosby and Malkin. But I have them on the outside looking in. And as a Blue Jackets fan, yeah, we're not too keen on Pittsburgh, but I really did look into it, and that's just kind of where I'm leaning at least.
I mean, here's the thing, right? You look at the Penguins, and yeah, they're struggling right now, but I just don't see a situation in which Crosby, Malkin, and Phil Kessel even, and Barrett Brassard, and Chris Letang, and Jake Gensel, and some of these names, Patrick Hornquist as well. I mean, some of these names, they just, I can't, I feel like they would rather win every game 10-9 like Toronto has been for the most part, instead of, losing games which they've had been. It's also still the middle of October. There's still, 70 plus games to be played in. What we could be saying now could be just, outdated jargon by November. We don't know. But right now,
hell, even next week. For all
absolutely,
we know.
they could start. They could win 8. They could win the next 8 games in a row, and then we could sound like we don't know what we're talking about. So it's like with the Penguins, you just never know. But you're right to bring up the Penguins, question marks right now, because I said this earlier on my show as well. The defense is a big question mark. You have Schultz out for months, so right now they are very much relying on 2 defensemen. Chris Letang, who is a question mark in his own right because he's been dealing with a lot of health issues over the past few years, and Brian Dumoulin. They had 3 going into the year with Justin Schultz. Schultz is now injured, so now they are relying on 2 defensemen, Dumoulin and Letang. Oh, they have Oli Mata and Jamie Alexiak and Jack Johnson.
Jack Johnson, baby.
Yeah, Norris winner in 2019, Jack Johnson.
We'll see about that.
But their blue line is as much of a question mark as Toronto. Maybe a little bit less because Chris Letang, meanwhile, is still currently healthy, and Brian Dumoulin is also a very solid defenseman. But if Letang goes down, it's a huge problem for them as well. And Matt Murray is 24 years old. His 3rd concussion, he's out indefinitely. And then you have Jarry and DeSmith in goal, who are both unproven and both question marks right now. So for the first time in what seems like millennia, I don't know. In multiple millenniums, I don't know.
There you go. I think you know
millenniums
that for sure.
is I don't know. But in what seems like multiple centuries, how about that? That's easier. The question mark in Pittsburgh has been bigger than I can remember. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, you're spot on, and that's kind of all the things that I was taking into consideration. You said it a lot better than what I was kind of getting at, but I mean, it's defensively they're definitely in a rut, and especially when your goaltender is having the issues with concussions like Murray is, that's a problem. I mean, the goaltender essentially is the backbone of your team. If he's in and off the ice throughout the season, that's going to definitely play a role in how they perform. So. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. So, I mean, I do think they will miss the playoffs, but I think it's going to be a fight between them and the Devils for a spot.
I mean, in past years, I would have called you crazy, but in this year, in this situation that the Penguins are in right now, I mean, that's probably the most level-headed take I've heard about the Penguins so far, only because, as you've said, they have so many maybes and what-ifs, and if Letang goes down, the season's I don't want to say the season's over for Pittsburgh, but if Letang goes down and Murray is on IR for a long period of time, they could be in a huge hole. So you are on the money. I feel like there's a big problem in Pittsburgh, and we've seen Pittsburgh make that huge deadline trade and then fix the holes that they've had, but this year I don't know. There's big problems in Pittsburgh. I still think they're going to make the playoffs because they are Pittsburgh. They are still the Penguins at the end of the day. But it's not as clear cut as it was even last year. So you're totally right on the money for that. The Ducks are leading the West with 11 points. They are second in the NHL behind Toronto, who has 12. I don't know how, but they have 12 points. They're 6-1 with that blue line, and I think that's just a hot streak. I mean, they've scored 33 goals in 7 games. Toronto has, which is absolutely crazy. That's almost 5 goals a game. That's not gonna last. But for what it's worth,
can you imagine though if it does last the end of the year stats for some of these guys with Toronto? It would be insane.
NHL 19-esque. That's for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
The Ducks are second in the NHL, first in the West. The Preds are close behind with 10. They're 5-1. The Ducks are 5-1-1. The Ducks, I had prior to the season starting, they were going to miss the playoffs because you had Perry down, you had Getzlaf down for a little bit. You look at the Pacific Division and you look at the West, and you just say to yourself, there are many teams better than the Ducks are right now, and there's no way the Ducks could beat a team like Dallas, like Minnesota, like Vegas. I had Vegas very high up on my list after talking to Sinbin Vegas about a month ago, who sold me on Pacioretty, who sold me on that blue line. He sold me completely. The Vegas Golden Knights are 3-4 right now, and they've only scored 15 goals in 7 games. That is not good. Doesn't bode well.
Yeah, Vegas is definitely struggling this year. But we got to give a shout out, at least I do, to Kiefer Sherwood. He's playing with the Ducks right now. He's actually an Ohio product. He went to the Miami University of Ohio. He grew up in the Blue Jackets system for youth hockey. So he had his first NHL goal, I think, last week. So, an Ohio product, that just kind of goes to show that the landscape here in Ohio, a lot of people don't realize that is just rich with a lot of youth hockey, college hockey, and it's pretty sweet to see a homegrown kid, make it to the NHL and already scoring his first goal.
So I got to ask you a quick question about Ohio as a state. Yeah. Why is there a Miami University of Ohio? I just, I've never been to Ohio as someone that is just curious here. Why in the world is there a university called Miami University of Ohio?
Let me Google it because I don't know.
I love how you're drawing as much of a blank as I am.
I'm pretty sure because their mascot is a Indian. I want to say it was named after a tribe. Let me click search here on Google. I'm just going to do it just for your listeners here and you. I was right. Miami tribe, which inhabited western Ohio.
Oh, okay.
Which runs west of the Ohio River, a couple hours from Cincinnati. So there you go.
The more you know.
The more you know. And Miami University, man, their hockey program is no joke here in Ohio.
I love college hockey. College hockey is it's so much fun to watch. The Ducks are 5-1-1. The Vegas Golden Knights are 3-4. They won their past 2 in a row, so better than the 1-4 start that they had. The Sharks are 2-3-1 right now. I mean, they didn't look good against the Devils either. There's what is happening in the NHL right now? St. Louis only has 1 win in 6 games. I mean, after that, after getting O'Reilly, after kind of regathering themselves, after trading Braden Shen, and just not Braden Shen, sorry, Paul Stastny. After trading him to the Golden Knights, and then now Stastny is injured, so that's a whole other story. But some of these teams, I mean, I'm looking at the standings right now, and it baffles me. Even Winnipeg is they blew their last game against Edmonton in incredible fashion. They were up 4-1, and in the third period, Edmonton storms back, scores 3 goals, and then they win in overtime. I mean, like that game was wild. Didn't look like Winnipeg at all. I mean, this is, again, as I said earlier, the Canadiens started 10-0 a couple years ago, and then they didn't make the playoffs. So there's take these with a grain of salt, obviously, because we're still very early in the season. But these standings are looking just topsy-turvy right now.
Yeah, I was going to pretty much bring up what you just said. It's so early. Granted, everything you're saying is very interesting, and like it's kind of crazy to see how the standings are at this particular time, especially with the teams of last season and what they did, and now they're just really not doing what happened last season. So, but me personally, as a hockey fan and then somebody who talks about it for a living, I mean, I don't really take it too seriously until about 15 to 20 games into the season. That's when you really kind of can gauge what teams are going to be doing, kind of what the identity of certain teams are. And so for me, I mean, I'm kind of taking what these standings look like with a grain of salt. It's like, we'll see. I think everything kind of will turn out the way it should. And I think kind of the expectations of what a lot of people think about the standings and how they think it should go would probably go that way. So like I said, probably 15 to 20 games in, that's kind of when I really sit back, analyze what's going on in the league, and can kind of gauge, truly what's happening.
Biggest case in point to add to what you just said, the Canucks are over 500. They are 4-2. They won 3 in a row. They beat Pittsburgh the other day. They don't have a goaltender. They have again, I don't want to trash Nielsen, and Markstrom as people, because I'm sure they're great people. But in terms of being in terms of doing their jobs, which is being a starting goaltender in the best league in the world and being the backup goaltender in the best league in the world, they're not good at doing that. So to be 4-2 and to beat Pittsburgh the way they did, I mean, that's case in point right there. They are 4-2, sitting third in the Pacific with the roster that they have, with the goalies that they have. I mean, case in point right there. But one last thing here before I'm going to let you go. The Chicago Blackhawks need a goalie that's not named Cam Ward. I don't know. Despite Cam Ward being an atrocity in net, they are 3-0-2.
That's what I'm saying. Like they're 3-0-2 on the season, and I haven't really been paying too much attention to Chicago this season. But from what you were telling me earlier, he kind of blew a couple games where they could be 5-0. Is that right?
Yeah, it's just
I don't know.
I do think it a little bit has to depend on Chicago playing better than they usually would, let's say in front of a Corey Crawford, because they know they don't have Crawford in net right now, and it's Cam Ward, a goalie that...
I did read today, I believe Crawford is coming back, if not today, the next game. So he may be coming back for the Coyotes.
I mean, if he is, that's huge. They do play tonight at home against Arizona. That would be huge for Chicago because Cam Ward, oh boy, he didn't look good in Carolina except for the 06 year.
Here's the real question: has he given up 8 goals this year, like Bob?
I don't think he has. Yeah. I don't think. I mean, the Hawks in 5 games, 21 goals against, 22 goals for. Somehow the 3-0-2. Yeah. Just high-scoring games all around. I don't think they've given up 8 yet. A goalie who has given up 8 is Georgiev, the backup goalie for the Rangers, in the 8-5 loss against the Hurricanes last week. That was a painful experience to watch. But, I mean, the Hawks need a backup. Let's say Crawford does come back for this game, for the next game. They need a better goalie than Cam Ward. Cam Ward is just not an NHL goalie. He hasn't looked good. His positioning has been off. He's given up some just bad goals, and just he doesn't look comfortable. I don't know what it is about Cam Ward right now, but he never looked great in Carolina besides the Cup year. But the past few years have just been not kind to Cam Ward. And hey, I mean, Vancouver needs a goalie. Probably not Cam Ward, but at this point, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he's at least he hasn't handed Chicago a regulation loss. So I mean, he's not. Granted, yeah, he's given up a crap ton of goals, which is obviously something you don't want to see, because then your team has to really shell out a lot of goals for you. But yeah, I mean, if Crawford's coming back, I mean, that kind of puts Ward as the backup. So we'll see how Chicago fares with that,
For sure. Did I read the actual answers to the poll question? Because I don't remember if I said the percentages.
I don't think you said the percentages. You did read like the actual
right. I was
answers.
Supposed to, and then we talked, and I forgot about it. So the poll responses, of course, were the four choices were he gone, stays but gone in July, pretty likely and 100% guaranteed. It's pretty much it is exactly an 80-20 split. 43% says of the answers say he's gone. 37% say he stays but gone in July. Over 75 people have responded to the poll. 16% that he's pretty likely to stay in Columbus, and 4% say is 100% guaranteed. So 80% of the responses think he's either gone at the deadline or in July, and 20% say there's a pretty good chance that he stays in Columbus past July, which is, I mean, that's pretty telling right there.
It is, and I would honestly say, kind of having my finger on the pulse of Columbus fans, that's probably about what they would say too. 80-20, I don't doubt that at all. Just kind of what we've heard from his agent, from him himself, saying he's loved his time. One thing I've noticed is when he speaks, he always speaks past tense. So he says, "I've loved my time in Columbus. I've made a lot of memories here." So that kind of is telling. Maybe he's just kind of like not. He's kind of already checked out. Is kind of what I'm saying. That could very well potentially be, but at the same time, I'm still holding out hope.
I mean, that's fair. That's at this point. That's all you can do, really. That's what the Islanders had to do on Long Island for this past year with John Tavares and what was going on with him. And now I guess it's Columbus's turn to feel the wrath of the uncertainty of their star player. 2 star players of that,
yes.
Bobrovsky and Panarin. So it's going to be an interesting offseason for us for sure. So just send a little prayer our way because we'll need it. Jordan, this was awesome. I really appreciate you coming on. Talk to me a little bit about the CBJ Artillery. # We Are the Fifth Line. Talk to me a little bit about that and where people can follow you and listen to your podcast and all that and all that cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So CBJ Artillery. We started in 2014, and we were the creators of the We Are the Fifth Line movement that took place, which is pretty sweet. And we ended up forming a partnership with the Blue Jackets themselves. So we've had a lot of great opportunities with them and doing some things. And we have our own podcast called the Artillery Podcast. If you're interested in just guys being dudes, a lot of time we drinking some beer while we're talking about hockey. You can find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, TuneIn, all the above. Obviously, we're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, everything. Same handle at the CBJ Artillery. We're a very sarcastic, witty, snarky group of people. So our tweets usually catch the eye of a lot of people. So it's a fun thing. It's a fun thing to be a part of. So if you have any interest in at least seeing how the Panarin and Bobrovsky saga pans out, I would say for sure give us a follow.
Absolutely. Jordan, you're the best. I really appreciate you coming on, and I'll talk to you again real soon.
Yeah, sounds good, man. Have a good one. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And this is, of course, Chel Squared. I'm your host, Andrew Chelney. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you again next week.